Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it, Roadshow Tuesday, Real Red Tip-Off, as we are here at the Single Barrel. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal, back at our ESPN Lincoln studios. Our favorite Boilermaker shot taker has just shown up as well, as it is Nebraska-Creighton getting ready for an early tip-off tonight. Are you on your way down to Pinnacle Bank Arena? Swing on in, the Single Barrel. Make plans to get yourself a steak, a sandwich, some fries, an IPA over there with some Husker fans checking things out. Of course, check out the Top Golf simulators when you're in town. But above all, get some of that wonderful whiskey and steak here at the Single Barrel. Numbers to get in today at 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. Can find us on Twitter at Schmidt_radio or at Herbal Essence on Twitter for Elijah. We're trying something new. My face is so beautiful. I'm kidding. That Facebook wasn't enough. ESPN Lincoln, Facebook, we're streaming live. But remember that scene in Animal House? Some of you old enough, right? Junior saw Animal House when he was 9, Parent of the Year. But there's the scene on Animal House where they put a picture of Kent Dorfman up. And Belushi screams in the front row, and then all of a sudden chew cups and beers and broken glass is thrown at the pictures of Kent Dorfman where people are screaming. That's me. Twitter, hello. We are streaming live on Twitter as well, and it is incredible. Hey, Elijah, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excuse me, I need to turn my mic on here. But yeah, a new place to be able to catch Hail Varsity Radio is always good, especially on a day like today, Nebraska-Creighton. I have just been looking forward to this one probably for weeks now with how this football season's gone the past couple weeks. So really excited to see how this Husker basketball team fares and what kind of strides they've made since a really disappointing week last week.
Here's what's the reality. You deserve something good as a Nebraska fan, and Will Bolt's there for you with this recruiting class today, but that doesn't start till February. Husker basketball, at least they're 1-1. All right, at least they took Sam Houston State down. That was a tough watch on Friday. I don't know how today's going to turn out. I know Nebraska's favorite at Pinnacle Bank. I know the crowd is so anxious to blow the roof off of PBA against the hated in-state rivals. Creighton comes to town, 5 new starters, but guess what? Tempo, threes. They know what happens in March, and that is dancing. They go to the NCAA tournament, and if they don't go, they're right there, at least at the door, trying to get in. Nebraska trying to do that here sooner rather than later with this incredible lineup of talent that needs to translate into wins for Nebraska. Easier said than done. So you feel a little bit better about Nebraska finding a way against Sam Houston State. You still have the taste of Western Illinois in your mouth. And Nebraska and Coach Hoiberg, we'll hear from Fred here in a little bit. But listen, it's going to be an electric atmosphere. You get to be back with tons of your buddies as we know what kind of a juiced atmosphere PBA brings. Can Nebraska's playmaking, can Nebraska's basketball IQ, can Nebraska's toughness really emerge against Creighton? And it's going to be about tempo. So we'll check in with Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Network, Big Ten Buffet. He is dual threading here with basketball and football on the network. Get his take on Nebraska football, on Nebraska basketball. This is still supposed to be Wisconsin week. And with the Gavitt games doing the crossover between the Big East and Big Ten Challenge, I love that. Give me about 3 weeks to play this thing, right? Don't slam in Nebraska-Creighton in November. That's what we got to do. So be it. This should be a standalone anyway. It should be Nebraska-Creighton. It shouldn't be included in the GABA games. Let Nebraska play somebody else from the Big East. They've done it, be it Virginia Tech or Clemson or Miami. They don't have that. It's Creighton. That's your partner this year. So we'll see how Nebraska responds. We'll see if the shooters get going. We'll see if Nebraska gives the home crowd something to cheer about. You pray it's a tight ball game. Not that Creighton's world beaters right now. They are 2-0. We'll dive into some Nebraska-Wisconsin thoughts as Coach Chin's talked today. And in hour two, Hall of Fame coach and longtime Nebraska basketball assistant Jeff Smith going to be on site with us, get his take on the rivalry, get his take on the matchup and the keys tonight for Nebraska basketball. And then Coach Kaz also going to be with us, get his thoughts on the coaching carousel. And we might even talk some hoops with Coach Kaz because, well, Kaz could ball, being as tall and as good a footwork as he had. So maybe some stories from noon ball past with Nebraska football coaches. Elijah, you still play pickup ball. You and Willie J and some of the crew. I haven't gotten that phone call because you guys are wise.
Well, yeah, we know that your playing technique is physical, foul fest. I would call it if I had to put a term on how you play basketball. But I'm not going to sit here and act like basketball was my sport by any means. I think Willie J and I and our group of friends, we all play together because we're not good. We are good when we're compared to each other. Once you get us all winded, like, okay, now we might have some competition. But yeah, no. But basketball, give me an open three and I'll knock it down. But don't make me go beat somebody off the dribble.
Well, let's hear from a guy that was good off the dribble, wonderful at spotting up, Coach Hoiberg, as he had part of his presser. Yes, he had his press conference yesterday. Dan, our faithful listener, posted a pretty hilarious GIF of Grandpa Simpson walking in. It says Schmidt on Twitter. He walks in, sees Bart, turns around, and walks out. Don't let it frighten you. Bill chimes in. Two handsome guys chatting before a Husker win. Love your confidence, Bill. But find the show, stream the show, ESPN Lincoln on Twitter, ESPN Lincoln on Facebook. But here is Coach Hoiberg. As it is a rivalry, and it's time for Nebraska to get some work done in this rivalry.
It's one of the great things about sports is rivalry games. You know, even though I've only been a part of this one for a couple of years, I've been a part of a great one growing up in Ames, playing against Iowa. Those were always huge games for us and huge games for them. And the state, gets really jacked up for those contests. So, it is 1 year without fans, obviously very strange, playing both games so far on the road, which we're very appreciative to Coach Mack for changing up the schedule a little bit, where we wouldn't have played in an empty arena and then go back there with fans again. So, really excited about this opportunity. We'll learn a lot about ourselves in this game. They're going to test us in a lot of ways. I've been very impressed with the young talent that they've got in their roster, and just need to go out and play with great effort for 40 minutes. We do that, and we'll have a chance.
So effort, intensity, intelligence, all things that are very important tonight for Nebraska basketball. More from Hoiberg here. What's the plan, right? What is the plan tonight against Creighton?
For us, we just need to go out and, first of all, be better than what we've been so far this season. We can build off some of the things that we did in the second half the other night against Sam Houston. And, when the ball moves, we're a pretty effective team. When we get dribble happy and dribble the air out of the ball, which we've had too many of those possessions so far this season, we get stagnant, we get ourselves in trouble, and we're susceptible, in transition on the other end because we don't have any movement. So, it's been a big emphasis in practice the last couple of days, and our guys have done a really good job getting in the paint, making plays as opposed to getting in there, shifting, shooting contested mid-range shots, spraying it out and getting good looks on offense. So that's been a big emphasis of what we've been trying to do. We continued to hit the glass hard. I thought we were more physical, much more physical in our second game, and we're going to have to carry that over tomorrow night to this game against Creighton. They've got some very athletic players and good length across the board.
We'll hear more from Coach Hoiberg coming up here in this hour. Here at the Single Barrel Hail Varsity Roadshow, Real Red tip-off ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. On your way down, get a cold one, get a sandwich, or go big on a Tuesday because you deserve it. It's 70 degrees. Get yourself a steak here at the Single Barrel. Also, programming note, we're here Wednesday before Thanksgiving. You want to ditch your in-laws? They're invading your home? I'm right here for you. Get over here to the Single Barrel. Steve weighs in. Go Big Red. Beat Creighton. Hashtag Nebrasketball. And a faithful assistant of Danny Nee, of course, Jeff Smith, will be with us here in less than 1 hour. So here's what I do know. 25 turnovers last year against Creighton for Nebraska basketball. Creighton at 1 point up by 38 points. In 2019, that was a beauty. Creighton led at 1 point, 40-9. They blocked an extra point. It's going to be about transition. Nebraska and Coach Hoiberg 0-2. Listen, I don't know if Nebraska wins tonight, but you need something good if you're a Nebraska sports fan. Saturday doesn't look great. Let's see if Fred and the crew can do it. You know, if we break this down real simply, Elijah, transition's key. Creighton's going to get up and down. They're good about averaging 80. I know they not long ago shot 8 of 44 from three-point land, so they're a far cry from vintage Creighton, but they could round into that easily. And Fred's really hit on this, keeping it simple. I think that's what's frustrated and maybe pumped the brakes or dampened Nebraska basketball fans, because you've had an unbelievable amount of hype with this team, with Bryce McGowan's. You've got Kisei, the sharpshooter. Of course, you've got Wiltshire that's there, and then you've got some guys that are back. Trey for sure, Eduardo Andre Breidenbach. I mean, he's a new name, obviously, but Lat has been dinged. You haven't seen Kobe yet. So there are some pieces that are back, and you're looking for a year 3 jump. But the biggest problem with Nebraska right now is keeping it simple. And we'll hear from Fred in a little bit on Verge. But here's a thing I don't get. And I mean, yes, bring talent in, but you're asking Verge to come in. And Verge has always been kind of an off-ball scorer. He's a guy that was Mr. Microwave. He'd go get you double digits in the blink of an eye, and he'd do it via volume, or he'd be pretty efficient. I mean, he'd catch fire. He could go off and carry you. But now you're asking him to play point, and he totally can do it, and he's got the handles to do it, and he's got the first step to do it. But Nebraska's had a real problem finishing at the rim through two games, at least to start the game. They were better in Game 2 against Sam Houston State. But in Game 1, Nebraska's offense with Fred is beautiful. You finish at the rim or you kick out, catch, fire, 3, there you go. But Nebraska's not been great at finishing at the rim, and I'm interested to see, what tweaks. And Verge will be the straw that stirs your drink tonight. Can he just do the simple?
And the question to me is, how does this Husker basketball team handle the pressure? Because we saw how they played whenever there was no pressure on against Colorado. Whenever, if you lose this game, it's okay. It doesn't affect our record. It's a learning opportunity. And you saw how they came out. They came out really without fear of failure. Wasn't guys trying to do too much. They shared the ball well. But then as soon as the game started to matter and the pressure's on, you have some more fans inside PBA against Sam Houston State as well as against Western Illinois. You see this team start to press a little bit. Guys are starting to play hero ball. Guys are starting to work too hard, trying to put it all on their own shoulders, get into the basket, making that offensive spark. And this tonight, what it is, at its heart, is this is the most important game, the biggest game so far of the Fred Hoiberg era. It's the first time you've had the kind of talent on this Husker basketball team that you said you were going to bring here. It's the type of first time you've really had the true, just pure talent to be able to beat this Creighton team across from you. So how does this Husker basketball team handle the pressure in front of what I'm assuming is going to be a pretty raucous and pretty full PBA crowd? Because the pressure is going to be on. They know what type of team they have across from them, and they know they have the talent to beat this Creighton team. It's how do they handle the pressure?
They have it, and you're right on. Can you handle the pressure? And do you look for your teammates to help lift that pressure? Or is it going to be John Wayne time? It's all about me, and I've got some scouts in the building, and, man, I got to show out. And that's the wall that Hoiberg's got to knock down in this early season. And you've got guys that are mature, and a guy like Trey McGowan's. He can talk to his teammates. He can talk to his brother. And honestly, I don't worry about a guy like Bryce. I don't. I mean, Bryce was only took 13 shots to get you 29, 27 points. Those are two incredible outings. One was a volume effort. Another was an efficient effort. I truly worry about Verge. And do we have time to sneak in the Verge comment or not? No, we'll do that at 4:40. But there was a sit-down film session with Hoiberg and Verge. You do not want to put the brakes on a guy like Verge. Absolutely not, with decision-making and athleticism in the free flow of this offense. You can't do it. You won't do it. But he needs to be more worldly with how he's distributing.
Yeah, it comes down to guys being able to know their roles, learn their roles, and then be able to go out and execute their roles on a night-in, night-out basis. That's what this team is got to learn right now, is what are the roles and how do I go out and execute those roles.
And that was the second thing Fred said this season in the preseason presser. Role acceptance. Come on down to the Single Barrel. Real Red tip-off ahead of Nebraska-Creighton here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Rick Pizzo's next.
And we're back
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here. Real Red tip-off inside the Single Barrel. As folks having a drink and a steak before Nebraska-Creighton, we welcome in with the Big Ten Network, Big Ten Buffet time. It's Rick Pizzo. Rick, it doesn't get any better than this. It's just a little earlier than we're used to with Nebraska-Creighton. How are you?
Doing great, man. It is funny, Chris, I love basketball as much as I love football, but this time of the year when you have that crossover and my mindset is still fully on football because I travel every weekend, I'm not quite ready for hoops. I wish we could delay it a couple of weeks until we get done with the regular season of football, but I know in today's day and age of scheduling, it's just not a reality.
So how cold was Rick Pizzo in Iowa City?
It wasn't that bad, Schmidt, honestly. Like, the first half was fine because the sun, what there was of it, was still out a little bit. Second half, the wind started gusting a little. The problem becomes when you're on the field for 4.5 hours, and there's no sun to warm up that field turf. The field turf gets really cold, and you can start to feel that chill go from your feet to your legs and through your body. So I got to tell you, by the time I was doing post-game interviews, if Kirk Ferentz isn't wearing a hat and gloves, I can't have one on either. So you got to roll with what gets you there.
Well, I'll say this. About midway through the fourth, Captain Kirk did put a stocking hat on. We were watching that game, and he got bundled up a little bit. We'll get into some Big Ten football in a moment. I want to get your reaction to Trev Alberts and what he's done since we last talked, and that's Scott Frost is going to be back for a fifth year. His deal's restructured, a chance to bump that $4 million for 2022 back up to $5 million for 2023, but also Scott letting four dear close associates of his go on the offensive side. What do you make of it?
Yeah, the money's not a big deal. I mean, to you or I or most of the rest of the world, it's a huge deal, but I don't think to Scott it's a big deal. The letting go of the assistant coach is something completely different, and I'm not that surprised with what Trev decided to do. Recent history, Chris, look at the Big Ten East. Very similar to what Ward Manuel did with Jim Harbaugh. Pay cut, more incentive-based. Now, those changes came more on the defensive side than the offensive side, but similar situations worked out very well for Michigan this year. Obviously, still have a huge game coming up next Saturday against Ohio State to prove if maybe the changes got them over that hump. But I think it worked in Ann Arbor. I think it's something that could potentially work in Lincoln, though I believe, and this is just conjecture on my part, I believe the leash may be a little bit shorter than it was in Michigan. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh was making even more money, and so the restructuring gave Michigan back a little bit more financial latitude than the extra $1 million Nebraska's getting back. But I also think Michigan had been close, right? They had won 8, 9 games. Now, it's not necessarily a fair comparison because the cupboard wasn't nearly as empty when Jim Harbaugh took over as it was when Scott Frost took over. But I do think that probably even more so than what we heard in Ann Arbor, this is a one-year show-me-what-you-got kind of arrangement.
It is, and you have that October 1st date that was released Friday where you've got about 6 games to see where the direction of the program is going for 2022. You know, Rick, it's Wisconsin week. This is supposed to be a big game. The line isn't that brutal from Vegas, that is. We'll see where Nebraska's offensive line is at against the Wisconsin front seven. But to shift gears to Madtown on Saturday, you know, what do you think of this Wisconsin kind of resurrection, so to speak, after their 1-3 start? Conversely, you know, what do you take away from Nebraska here, coming off a bye week, hanging in with Ohio State? What do you see with this matchup?
Yeah, well, I've seen Wisconsin a couple of times in person this year, and I saw them after the really tough start. I saw them when they started to trend in the right direction. Braylon Allen has come on, and he's an absolute beast. I got to tell you, Chris, he's 17, won't turn 18 until January. There are very few 17-year-old young men that are built like that. He is just an absolute horse. And behind that offensive line that is now healthy again, he gives you that run threat of going the distance, and not just that, but beating you up. I mean, he's the one delivering blows, and that softens everything up for Graham Mertz, who's looked so much better over the last month. But in this game, and you brought up Wisconsin's defense, can you find any holes there? I talked to Greg Schiano about it. He said, listen, we sat down as a staff before the Rutgers-Wisconsin game. He said, we kept looking for holes and how can we exploit? And there were no holes to exploit. I mean, they have a 260-pound linebacker in Leo Chenal who runs like a fast safety and can fill gaps. Jack Sanborn, their entire back seven is ridiculous. Maybe their defensive line isn't quite as elite as it was in the J.J. Watt days, but they're hole stuffers. They're so big and physical. This, to me, is the biggest test of the year for Nebraska's offensive line, and I think you actually cannot try to run the ball to set up the pass. I think you have to be able to throw the ball a little bit to try to soften things up a little bit to open it up for the run, because if you do it the other way, they're just going to chew you up and spit you out defensively.
Rick, I look at a couple of past meetings with Nebraska, Wisconsin, and they were, 13, 17 point type differences, but Adrian's first game in Madison, 400-plus yards total offense, really good ball game for him. It was the defense that got wore out by the Wisconsin run game. 2019, you had Cruikshank before he went to Rutgers, a couple of big returns. But Mills went off for almost a 200-yard rushing day against Wisconsin. So this Frost scheme seems to give problems. And we know Adrian's been up and down. He seems to be healthier after another bye week. Could Nebraska, again, give Wisconsin some fits with just some ad-lib here by Adrian?
Yeah, I think that is the one thing when you have a fast, aggressive defense that loves to get after the quarterback, then the middle can be softened up if you have a quarterback who can run. Now, saying that, Jim Leonard is not one of the hottest coaching prospects in the country because he doesn't figure things out. I mean, he figures it out, and he figures it out quickly. I do think that Jim Leonard knows going into this game that Scott Frost is well aware that Adrian Martinez's running ability, especially on broken plays and maybe on some design quarterback runs, gives Nebraska its best chance to have success offensively. The trouble is, though, that you also have linebackers and safeties on that Wisconsin defense that know that, are fast enough, not as fast as Adrian, but fast enough that they can play that spy role and let other guys do the work if, in fact, that's what Nebraska decides to do offensively. Yes, Nebraska has had some success. I think this Wisconsin defense, the way this Wisconsin defense is playing right now, is arguably as well as any defense that we've seen play football in the Big Ten, maybe since the start of the Big Ten Network era 15 years ago.
That's impressive, and that says a lot from you, who've seen about every defense, and I wouldn't disagree with you. They are that great a unit. They have stars, not in the Watt type frame, but they've got that linebacking core in the secondary you touched on. So Nebraska defensively, your hope here, Rick, is to slow down Allen and I guess make the Wisconsin passing game beat you. Is that the game plan if you're Coach Chins?
No doubt about it. Listen, I mentioned that Graham Mertz has been better. He's been much better, but you cannot let Wisconsin beat you with its strength. And its strength right now is Braylon Allen and that offensive line controlling the clock, wearing you down, beating you into submission. You can't let him do that. Now, if Graham Mertz goes nuts and makes great throws to his receivers, and, I think Jim Ray DK is a guy who's come on as of late. He's been really good, and obviously they have a terrific tight end in Jake Ferguson and other wide receiver options. But if those guys beat you, then they beat you. And you tip your cap and you say, congratulations, Graham Mertz. We were going to stop the run, and, that's what we sold out to do. You do it the other way, you're in a ton of trouble. I just think you have to make sure that you don't get beaten by allowing the other team to impose its will and utilize its strength. Yes, if you're Eric Shenander to me, you make sure that you do everything possible to limit what Braylon Allen that run game does, and you take your chances on the outside and with the pass game.
Rick Pizzo's with us, Big Ten Buffet, Hail Varsity Radio here at the Single Barrel inside the Graduate Haymarket, buzzing Nebraska and Creighton here in a little bit from PBA. Rick, I want to go to two names that are well known in Big Ten circles. We mentioned a little bit ago Nebraska's openings. What's been your impression of Ed Warner? He was at Ohio State in 2014, has been at Michigan. Pretty well-respected offensive line guy, was part of Mangino's crew also down at KU, and they were going 12-1. And then Kirk Ciarrocca, an offensive coordinator that didn't last with James Franklin, but man, was he good with Fleck. Are those two names that would make sense to target if you're Nebraska, if you're Scott looking to kind of keep the spread thing going but add a little more power?
It's interesting because I think Ed Warner is a guy that would fit pretty much everywhere. I mean, his knowledge is so deep on the O-line. Obviously, has ties inside the league. So if recruiting is part of that job description, which it pretty much always is these days with coaching, you have that checked off as well. Now, remember, he tried his hand as an OC at Ohio State for a little while, too, and that didn't work out nearly as well because I think he is specifically a position coach. Mm-hmm. So if his focus is just on that offensive line, I think he works pretty much everywhere. Now, Kirk Ciarrocca is an interesting guy because back in those days when he was at Minnesota and having success, remember, Minnesota had Tyler Johnson and Rashad Bateman, and they were kind of throwing the ball all over the yard. They had a couple of good backs, and Rodney Smith and Shannon Brooks, backs that they could also utilize in the pass game. Now, Minnesota has transitioned into a run-first offense, and I think Kirk saw that and said, well, let me try something new, and he got a great offer and a nice bump and a big raise from James Franklin, and that didn't work. I just don't think the chemistry was there, so you wonder what kind of offense he best fits in, and if it is, in fact, those couple of years in Minnesota was moving the ball down the field, then he would be a fit, but I think so much of it is chemistry. I don't know Kirk's personality well enough to know whether he would fit and jive with Scott and the other assistants he's bringing in, but obviously the two names that you mentioned, guys who have had not just experience inside the Big Ten, but significant success inside the Big Ten.
Do you worry about whoever that OC is jibing with Scott? And it'd be hard, wouldn't it, Rick, to just hand it over? And I don't know that Scott will totally do that, but it's his goal is to be more CEO-ish. But man, he's cut his teeth calling plays, and he's done it well at a couple of previous stops.
Yeah, I think that's much easier said than done, Chris. I mean, especially if you start to struggle, right? Your offense struggles, first couple of tough games, you start thinking to yourself, as the head coach who's called plays your whole life, you were an OC, and then you kept the play calling duty when you became a head coach. It worked wonders at UCF. You still have a really good offense at Nebraska. A couple of games of struggle under a new guy, you don't go, well, I would have called it this way, I would have called it that way. I think it's going to be a really tough thing for Scott to hand off. And I know his argument about being a CEO. Listen, Nebraska is one of the most important coaching jobs in the country because of the fan base, because of the history, because of what's expected of you. I think deep in his heart of hearts, Scott Frost is a play caller. And to be able to give that responsibility to somebody else, I think it's going to be really difficult.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here. Real Red tip-off inside the Single Barrel. Rick Pizzo's with us. Rick, we'll get you out of here real quick. A thought on Michigan State and Ohio State. That's a large number from friends in the desert. Michigan State's answered about every challenge except West Lafayette this year.
They have, but that defense has been penetrable at times. And if anybody can penetrate defenses, it's Ohio State. I mean, their offense right now is clicking at an unbelievable rate. Everybody wants to talk about Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. What about Jackson Smith-Njigba, who the last 3 weeks has been maybe the best receiver in the country, not just on the Ohio State team? And, of course, Travion Henderson is ridiculous in his yards per carry. C.J. Stroud, if you're telling me C.J. Stroud's not in the Heisman race right now, then you're not watching college football. So I have a ton of respect for what Mel Tucker and this Spartan program has done this year. I just don't think that right now anybody is capable of stopping Ohio State, which is why I give Nebraska so much credit for what it did defensively against the Buckeyes. It's probably their stiffest defensive challenge of the year. And ever since then, I think the wake-up call, I mean, you saw them last week against Purdue. I mean, they were going down the field and doing whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted. I think it's a really, really tough ask for Michigan State this week.
Rick, basketball will end it here as Fred Hoiberg and Creighton, Nebraska versus Creighton, and that tips off here shortly. Nebraska's got some stars, man. They've got some athletes. They've got some ballers. They need to be more simple, as he would put it, make the simple plays. What's been your early impression of Nebraska through a couple of games? They're 1-1. They've been crushed on the glass a little bit, but you know what? This is a rivalry ball game, and I'm not sure some of the kids here know what Creighton, Nebraska is on either side, because both teams are so young.
Yeah, it's a rivalry, but I'm with you. I don't necessarily know that either of these teams have guys who think to themselves, well, here's our in-state rival. This is a game that we have circled on our schedule. I think it's a really important game for Nebraska because of that start. You know, I was in studio, unfortunately, for that season opener, and simple is the word. You can go off and have your young guys score 25-30, but if you give the ball away, if you make mistakes at critical times, if you make bad decisions, you're not going to win basketball games against good teams. The Creighton's a good team. I mean, the best team, obviously, quality team that Nebraska has seen in 3 games this year. So, yeah, a win would be nice. A win would obviously be something huge to build on, but I think Fred Hoiberg is absolutely right. He needs to see his team make the simple, smart, fundamental plays to give them that base and a little bit of foundation as you start to get into the rest of your non-conference and, of course, in Big Ten play.
Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Network, Big Ten Buffet. Rick, be good. We'll check in soon. Thanks for a few minutes.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great week. Enjoy the game tonight.
Good to hear from Rick Pizzo, Big Ten Buffet. Thoughts on Nebraska-Creighton specifically. Let's talk and hear from Fred Hoiberg about Nebraska understanding the kids on the current roster and team getting what this rivalry is all about.
Our guys understand. They understand the importance of what this game means. We have talked about it to them. You know, the one thing about these games, sometimes you go out there, you're almost too hyped up, and just thinking back on experience from playing in those games and coaching in those games, you almost get a little too hyped up. So, you know, for us, it's about going out there and doing the things that have made us a good team this year and limiting the things that have caused us to struggle. And that's what it's all about. But absolutely, we have talked to our team about the importance of what this game means, you know, especially to our fans.
That is Fred Hoiberg here at the Single Barrel Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal Roadshow Tuesday with Hail Varsity Radio, and can find us on the social channels. We are attempting something, and that is a live stream on Twitter at ESPN Lincoln. And we've been streaming live on Facebook for a lot of our road shows, so check that out. Give us some comments or a follow or a comment on Twitter at Schmidt_radio, at Herbal Essence as well. We're here till 6. I know tip-off is at 6:01 with the incredible Kevin Kugler and Nick Baugh at PBA. So I'll probably be holding the fort down here, having something like this and probably a steak. Elijah's nodding his head going, yes.
Well, I was thinking that
steak. The Single Barrel is legendary for it, so you're invited down. We'll be here throughout the basketball season for some select basketball Real Red tip-off shows. That's going to be a lot of fun.
That could
Creighton
be
tonight, and then I think December 7th for Michigan and Nebraska. We're here Wednesday to get you out of the in-laws grasp or tractor beam getting ready for Black Friday next Wednesday here, Roadshow on Wednesday. So let's talk a little bit more about the key, right? Rebounding's always the key. That's 1A, Elijah. That's 1B. That's 1C. And you need McGowan's to be big tonight. But real quick from Fred, he got in a little bit inside baseball or inside basketball with his film session with Alonzo Verge. What does Verge do tonight to complement, to distribute, to get the offense going? Here's Fred from yesterday about his sit-down with Verge.
You know, those film sessions, it's not about taking away aggressiveness. Alonzo obviously is a kid that can really get into the paint, and he's got a scorer's mentality, and that's what he's played really for the last 4 years, going back to junior college and then at Arizona State. He has played more off the ball and has been asked to score the basketball, and he's fallen back on that a little bit, especially, if things weren't going great on the floor, to almost try to take the game over by himself. He had some great opportunities at the rim that he missed, and it might be a completely different game if he makes pretty much uncontested layups. He missed 3 of them in the first 10 minutes. So I'm not taking away Alonzo's aggressiveness, but what I am asking him to do is when he gets in there, he's got to survey the floor, because when we hit the paint, we spray it out. We're a very efficient team, and we look at numbers all across the board when we started this thing a couple months ago. So he took it well, and now it's about carrying it over and doing it in game action, especially when times get tough. And he admitted he got in his own head a little bit because you miss those easy ones at the rim, and then you start pressing. So, I thought his second half was better. The other night he finished better. He found Bryce on a couple plays where he came under control. And the biggest thing I showed him, when he makes a simple play early in the possession, whether it's hitting the pocket, throwing a shake pass, getting the ball moving, creating that chain reaction, we have really good possessions.
That's the mayor, Fred Hoiberg, ahead of Nebraska and Creighton. More thoughts on Nebraska-Wisconsin. Rick Kaczenski with us here at 5:20. And coming up, Jeff Smith, longtime Nebraska assistant, Hall of Fame coach for Lincoln Southeast. He'll be on site with us before he gets on his way to PBA for Nebraska-Creighton. It is about simplicity, and you just need to make the simple pass, or the jump stop, or the box out, or just do your job. You hear it in football all the time, Elijah, but man, getting back in transition is paramount, and we'll see how your closeout defense is as well for Nebraska. You don't need Creighton getting hot. 2008 and 2018. 2 times since 2008. That's it. 2 wins in that span is it for Nebraska basketball. You've got equal or better talent. Can you have equal or better execution and rebounding with the simple things tonight for Nebraska? And some basketball fans in this state want it twice a year, home and away. Do a game at CHI, do a game at PBA. Well, it's been a struggle, to say the least, for Nebraska basketball. Coach Miles and company got it done with Isaac Copeland going off in 18. A 52-50 rock fight erupted in 08 for Nebraska-Creighton. We'll see what happens tonight. One final segment here this first hour. Come on down to the Single Barrel, get a cold one and some grub before you head to Nebraska-Creighton. Hail Varsity on the road.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, hour 2 coming up. Longtime Nebraska assistant and Hall of Fame coach Jeff Smith going to be on site with us. We are on the road. Real Red tip-off. It is Single Barrel. We love being here for football and excited to be back for select basketball games. Nebraska-Creighton tonight, the in-state rivalry. Is it a red? Is it a blue state? There'll be some purple spilled, perhaps, by halftime. Reminder to buckle up here. There's over 1,500 crashes each year in Nebraska involving an impaired driver, driving drunk, buzzed, or high. Never acceptable. Law enforcement officers working every day to stop it before more people are killed or injured. If you're going to drive, don't drink. If you do drink, designate a sober driver or get a ride share. Getting that ride, a DUI costs more than you think. Brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. Coach is here on deck, ready to rock and roll. We'll get Coach Smith's take on Nebraska and Creighton here in hour 2. Brennan chimes in on Facebook and says, I dig this. So, yeah, you can screen. Again, it's the Animal House reaction. When they're accepting new pledges and someone's picture goes up on the screen, there's absolute screams here. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Elijah, you're fine. You're still young. You're vibrant. There's no gray. I got to wear a hat here. But if you're thinking about taking the office out for the holidays, the single barrel will feed them appropriately. But then you can always get into the dreaded golf. It's awesome. It's great. It's the top golf simulators. They've got other sports, too. They have other sports, a little football, little. It's the mother of all Wii setups, right? Did you have a Wii as a kid, Elijah? Did you have a Wii?
I always wanted a Wii, but my parents never got me one because I already had the PS3 going, and then eventually the PS4, and they said no Wii for you. You've already got your gaming console, and it was fair.
Okay, it was fair. Carson was 4 years old, and I bet him like $5 that he couldn't beat me in Wii tennis. He smoked me. And then I paid him in pennies. It's all good. It's all good. Excited to.
I was always jealous of all my friends that had the Wii because it was always so much fun to go over there and play. And then the PlayStation got like their stupid Wii knockoff version that I got, and it was not worth it. So
okay, we still have the Wii buried in one of her drawers. Of I don't know, you'll lose an arm going in there. There's DVDs, there's box sets of Will and Grace. There's the Wii, and it's inside the entertainment center that no one uses anymore because everything's mounted. We've gotten off on the yellow brick road here, but book some reservations here at the Single Barrel for that holiday party. It is going to be an incredible time with the Top Golf simulators here. Nebraska-Creighton. The rivalry, 2 wins since 2008 for Nebraska. Let's see if the mayor and company get it done. Talent level, even or better for Nebraska. What shakes out for the Big Red? And that tips off here shortly at 6. Future thoughts for you. You're coming down for Nebraska basketball, the Single Barrel, where we're at here inside the Graduate. Amazing steaks, beers, and Hall of Fame coach is on deck with Southeast and Nebraska basketball. Jeff Smith will be with us. Hour 2 coming up with Hail Varsity here at the Single Barrel. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmidt_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmidt.
Welcome to it. It's hour 2. It's Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. And it's awesome to see the Sunday family down here, the biggest Atlanta Braves fans I know. Dick Sunday has a Francisco Cabrera jersey on from back in the day. And, yes, it's awesome to see some Husker fans down here, which is pretty good. We are here with the Hall of Fame coach and longtime Nebraska assistant, partner in crime on basketball. Jeff Smith is with us. Coach, you've got your red on. You love Nebraska basketball. You were so awesome as an assistant at Nebraska with Coach Nee and the crew. And now here comes Creighton, man. How are you?
I'm great. How are you doing tonight?
I'm not doing as well as you because you got some golf in today too, didn't you?
Yeah, I snuck a little par 3 in today.
Did you?
Yeah. It was beautiful out. But I'll play down to 45 degrees, so I'll get a few more in.
If there's no wind, I'll do that too.
Yeah.
It's just finding people to. It's not about the weather. It's really honestly finding people to go with me. I got my buddy Iowa Russ, and he's about it.
Give me a call.
That'll be good.
Hey, no, but this is exciting. This rivalry is fantastic. Like I said this morning, I wish we played twice, a year like we
home
did.
And a home.
It'd be nice if they'd talk about it again, though. But I do bleed Nebraska. being on staff there. But I do respect Creighton and especially Coach McDermott. When I was coaching the 20 years at Southeast, we would go to practice every year, once or twice, to Nebraska, to Wesleyan if we could, to Creighton, and they were so hospitable. They would share their system with us. They play a lot like Nebraska as far as pace. One of the things that hit me the first time I went to his practice, all their players came over and shook my hand and said hello and introduced themselves, and I was just, and one of those was Doug McDermott, 1 year too, and I was impressed with that.
Three, right?
Yeah, that's a lasting memory. He even emailed me one time and said, "What'd you see? Tell me what we could do better." And he is an excellent coach. The Big East has been great for them. They've been great in the Big East, I fully respect them. But I hope we hammer him tonight.
Respect, but still bleeding red. Jeff Smith with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. We're at the Single Barrel, going to be our home this season for Select Nebraska Real Red tip-off shows. That's what we're in a part of right now. Steaks, beers, whiskey, 250 to choose from. So when you're coming down for a Nebraska basketball game that's not at 6 or at 6, you still got time to squeeze in a Guinness. Get on down here to the Single Barrel. It's incredible. Heath and the crew are just the best. We love being here for football. We're excited to be here for basketball. Coach Smith, let's get into the nuts and bolts of tonight. And Elijah and I have chatted quite a bit about just the opportunity here. 08, the last time Nebraska, and then, of course, back in 18 twice. Since 2008, that's it. That's your 2 wins against Creighton. From a talent level standpoint, you've seen firsthand what talent can do on the court, and Nebraska has that. Nebraska has some young, they have some old, they have some roles, and they have some transfers. That's been kind of Fred's formula. Love his offense. His kids are working on being better at executing it. What's your anticipation tonight with Nebraska and doing what he asked through the media, and that's being simple?
I see them listening. I think that in a big game like this, they've got to trust Coach Hoiberg. They've got to trust that he's been in these situations as a player and a coach, NBA stage. They've got to trust that he's telling them and giving them a winning formula. I think Creighton knows that winning formula, but Creighton has a lot of new guys that haven't been in this situation. I think one of the differences between Creighton and Nebraska, Creighton runs a lot of specials. They run the floor. They look for shots on the break. They want to play quick, but then they'll get into a special. They know where their shots are coming from in their offense. Early season, that can be kind of helpful. They didn't blow out their opponents by any means, but Coach Hoiberg's system is a little more motion-oriented, where you get to decide what you do. It's a little more read and react, so you get to decide what shots you take. And as we heard on your clip with Coach Hoiberg, Alonzo hasn't been great at that yet. I always coach point guards that you've got to be willing to give the ball up and then get it back sometimes to score. You can't always be the initial shot in the offense, and I thought Alonzo got caught up in trying to score early in their offense a lot, and then other guys are kind of getting frustrated. And if Tominaga's as good a shooter as Coach Hoiberg says, you've got to get him more than 2 looks a game. He might miss his first 2, but he might make his next 5 if he's that good of a shooter.
Let him heat up.
Exactly. So I see it. This is a big point guard game. Nembhardt's really good, and he fits their system perfectly, and they're going to be in their sets and know where they can score their sets. Alonzo has to get Nebraska involved. He has to get his teammates involved before he even thinks about scoring. If it presents itself, go score. If not, you've got to get those guys the ball and let them operate a little bit. You got to get Bryce the ball. You got to get Trey the ball. You got to get Ladd or whoever it is. You got to get them some looks and get them involved, because they're going to play harder on the defensive end if you do that.
Jeff Smith is with us, Hall of Fame coach at Lincoln Southeast, and of course Nebraska assistant with Coach Nee. Hail Varsity Roadshow. We are here at the Single Barrel ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. Coach, you just nailed it with that offense to defense mentality. Fred's touched on that with guys. Listen, you just don't want to get disinterested on offense, and then what's your intensity level on defense? How tough is this for Verge? We've watched Verge. We've watched Zoe really with that quick first step. We've seen him make great slices to the rim, and Nebraska's not been great at the rim through 2 games this year, but I mean, the ball will eventually drop for him. Verge is a hell of a ball player. How big of an issue is it for him to shift, to be asked to be on ball and run it and get other guys involved versus being the instant offense like he was at Arizona State?
Yeah, he's going from a combo guard to a pure point, and it's going to take a little while. It's going to take some coaching from Coach Hoiberg and the assistants, and I know they're doing that, but sometimes it takes a little while to click in to have that total A point guard might score 2 points in a game because he has to distribute and get people involved and the opponent chooses to take them away. He might score 20 in a game because they take away everybody else and they leave, but he's got to be able to read that. Kind of like a quarterback reading check downs. He's got, his check downs when he can create, but his first role is to initiate offense and get people touches. But I think that takes a while. It's going to take some coaching, and if he's never done that, which I don't think he has from all indications, it's going to take a while, but he has the talent to do it. He has the passing ability to do it. We saw that against Colorado. Mm-hmm. So it's there. It's just a matter of getting better every game and having an understanding of what the coaches want.
And you got to sell it too. Think about your value at the next level, being able to be a combo guy. You've shown you can put up points in droves at Arizona State. Think about what your value is going to be to an NBA team potentially with your athleticism and speed as a guy that can also distribute. I mean, that had to be the selling point to get him here.
Yeah, and I also wonder if it wouldn't be in the plans to play a Webster at point some when he gets healthy and let Verge move to the 2 a little bit. Mm-hmm. I know he's a little smaller, but his quickness is unbelievable. And say, hey, when you're in with whoever we're playing at point guard, then you get a catch and shoot a little bit more because you're on the wing, and so that could happen. You move a guy in and out of there a little bit. But I think right now they want to make him their designated point guard because they love his speed and quickness. They love his passing ability. I think he's got good vision. He can guard any position, perimeter wise. So I think they want to first make him their point guard.
Jeff Smith is with us, Hail Varsity Radio, here on the road at Single Barrel. A quick thought on McGowan's. What's your impression been here with Bryce? The point totals have been great. What impressed me was going from the volume to the efficiency, and he's not afraid either.
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. That first game, that Western Illinois, it was more quantity, not quality. And the second game, in just a few days, it was quality and not as much quantity. And to see him knock down some threes early in the season like this and have the range that he does, and I love his length going to the basket. He's one of those kids. I've always talked about on our show, Alex Gordon, how effortlessly he played. I think Bryce is the same way. Sometimes it doesn't look like he's playing hard, but look what he got done in that game. He's just so smooth and effortless. But I think he has such a great feel for the game. I think he's really crafty on his drives. He'll use his length sometimes and extend past a guy. He'll pull up and shoot over him sometimes. Been very, very, very impressed. I don't think he's going to average 27 a game. I think tonight Creighton will get into him physically and see if he can take a little pounding and see how he responds. I think this will be a different game for him tonight.
And, Coach, yeah, I'm right with you. I don't think that it's going to be one of those things where he is looking like an NBA prospect all year long. He's going to take his lumps, especially in the Big Ten. But I want to get your take on just this team as a whole with what Fred Hoiberg wants to build here at Nebraska. He wants that NBA system, a little bit more positionless basketball, really the layups and three-point type offense. Do you think he has the pieces this year to be able to effectively run that offense from what you've seen through 2 games?
Potentially, yes, I think he does, because he's got shooters that hopefully 1 or 2 of them can make shots per night, and you can find them. And if they can spot up in the corners and spread teams out like the NBA does, and with Verge's penetrating ability, with Bryce, even Trey going to the basket, I think they have a chance to play the way Coach Hoiberg does for the first time in his coaching tenure here, to play the way he wants them to. Yes.
Tell me a little bit about what you love with Hoiberg's offense and Kisei and Wilcher's fit in this rim or open 3 if you move it.
Well, the big thing is that those shooters create spacing. And when last year they would have some spacing, they would get penetration, they'd kick it out, they just couldn't make the shots at a high level. And so then teams would start packing in and say, hey, beat us from the three, and we couldn't do it. This year, hopefully, if they choose to pack the paint and take away, they're just going to have to pick their poison, I hope. If we shoot the ball as our potential shows, I think they're going to have to pick their poison and say, are we going to take away those threes and allow Verge and those guys to get to the rim, or are we going to try to have to zone up? Are we going to it's going to force them to make some changes which they might not be comfortable with. So, and then the pick and roll game, they've looked pretty good in that so far, and they can make an extra pass out of that. And that with that extra spacing, that pick and roll game opens up a lot more too. So, yeah, I think they got a chance if they have the right mentality. Colorado, there's no pressure. You're in an exhibition game. You make your first few shots. You looked fantastic. The ball kept moving because you were having success. The first regular season game, and I think we said on air, it's different because it's a real game. We tighten up a little bit. We miss our first few shots. Guys try to do too much. Maybe not even selfishly, but that's, I can do this. I can help the team. And so that became a problem.
Their heart was in the right place. It was just the wrong move. So let's talk about Walker. Let's talk about Ed. Andre, I love what he brought. I love his physicality. I love his 1-2. Nebraska has options. They'll need both in the Big Ten here. We got a couple minutes left here before you head to PBA, Coach Smith. What's a key or two for Nebraska? What's their advantage? And do we know about Mitchell for Creighton? He's a big puzzle piece for him tonight.
Yeah, Sharif, the Omaha Burke product, one of the best defenders in the Big East, I know. So I'm not sure if he's playing. He hasn't played in their first two. But if he plays, that could make a difference with Creighton defensively. But I think keys, obviously everybody looks at rebounding, and that's been a glaring weakness for us. So, and I think that's part of the reason they went to a little bigger lineup and got Eduardo in there. When they played Eduardo and Breidenbach in there, not only just rebounding, but changing shots inside, contesting shots a little bit better. I kind of like the fact that they could go Walker and have Eduardo back him up inside and then swing and then put Breidenbach maybe at a permanent 4, unless they really want to have 5 shooters on the floor. Then you bring Breidenbach back to the 5. But I really like Eduardo's athleticism in there, his ability to change shots. I don't know if he'll always be as efficient as he was in this last game, but Walker has been really good in pick and rolls. He's their strength defensively inside. He is a really good communicator. If you sit close enough to the floor, and I was fortunate enough to see a practice, he is a great communicator. And your big man has to be one of your best communicators, especially defensively. So those two could be a really good combination. And then you maybe slip Breidenbach back in there at the 5 sometimes, but I think he's a 4. I think he's a good long 4 that you like that can still spread the floor.
Jeff Smith, Hall of Fame coach and Nebraska assistant, longtime coach at Southeast with us here. Single Barrel Roadshow, Real Red tip-off here ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. Coach, about a minute. What was the message from Danny when he got here about this rivalry? It was Baroni back then. How did he treat it?
He just told the guys we can't lose it. We just have to have the in-state dominance.
We cleaned it up for radio.
We always do that with Danny. But yeah, he said this was he used to emphasize this game, that this is a rivalry, and we want to get the best of this rivalry. And Creighton was good back then. Harstead and Gallagher and those guys. It was a challenge. We kind of finally broke through and in that second year I was there and kind of dominated in one game, and that kind of sent a message that we were going to flex our muscles a little bit and be more physical, and we had better length then, and then we kind of got the better of them back then.
Then he took all the Omaha
they were always
talent.
Challenging. Yeah, and like I said this morning too, I think Creighton kind of naturally has that underdog feeling in this game. Just because they're not the big state university, and so sometimes that helps them a little bit.
Yeah. Coach, good to be with you. Thanks
good to be
so
here.
much.
Yeah.
Quick timeout. We'll continue on here. Real Red tip-off continues. Your Single Barrel Hail Varsity on the Road, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Back into it. It's Hail Varsity Roadshow Friday. Real Red tip-off here in the single barrel inside the Graduate Haymarket buzzing. It's Nebraska. It's Creighton. We welcome in legendary defensive line coach from Nebraska and Iowa. And word is he was a terror in the paint in Erie, Pennsylvania, hooping up. Kaz, it's a basketball Tuesday, but still football season, man. How you doing?
Good. Did you say legendary?
Sure, right?
Or infamous. Hey, man, give me some credit.
You can go infamous, I can go legend.
Yeah, I played outside the paint some too, brother. All right? I just didn't play in the paint. I wasn't just one of the that was Garrison. Oh, man. Some of them, you missed out some of the noon hoop games that with the staff section. Garrison was a freaky athlete. Freaky athlete.
I gotta ask you this. So if I would have showed up to noon ball with you guys, they got you and Garrison and Gans and Bo, and I mean I got picked growing up last anyway because of the old asthma card. But I mean I would have been ruined by you guys going up and down the court, man. I have no hoops game at all. Period.
We shot hoops for teams, or we shot foul shots for teams. We just wanted to make sure we weren't on Bo's team. That's all. Bo treated it like you're lining up against the Tar Heels. Yeah, it might be a couple balls still left up in the rafters that on some fouls. He'd call foul. Now Bo had a handle. Yeah, he
lefty,
was a good,
right?
Him and Vince, yeah, lefty, and then Bo's a big dude, man. You know, he could drive you into the paint, post you up, and then Vince. Coach Merrill would cherry pick, but he had a 3-man. He had a J. But some good. Yeah, it was good times. Good times.
I've got a story about noon ball, and former Nebraska linebacker John Hess. He loved hooping, okay, and he'd go down and play with you guys, or maybe before you got to Nebraska. But like we're talking, he's like, "Yeah, I go play noon ball with Pelini." And he's like, him and Carl, he's like, Bo and Carl, man, if the game's in doubt, they call a foul to get the extra possession. Did that happen to you guys?
Yeah, here's a couple things. Yeah, there were some fouls, there was some judgment, some judgment call fouls, but also too, you better call the picks out if Bo's on D. If you don't call a pick, and you were on his team. Oh, good lord! It was like giving up a seam route for a touchdown if you didn't call the pick out. But I was smart. I just kind of, when he was high post, I went low post. I kept my distance, man. But
did you ever hammer him going to the hole?
They were competitive, man. I mean, all of them. You didn't go over there. Then you come back to the stadium, and then we'd go down to training table and grab some lunch. Good times, man. Good times. But then you go to training table. So half the time we weren't talking, people were upset with one another for fouling too hard or calling a ghost foul, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's the stuff you miss. But yeah, I learned really quick that you played hoops. So come by my office, hey, we're playing hoops at noon. I'm good. No, you don't have a choice. Okay, walked away. hey, Jake Terry, I need some size 12s, brother. So
that's pretty good. Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, I want your take. I'm going to say some names, and I'm going to go from a certain conference that has had a lot of coaches that went from coordinator to their first head gig to big jobs. Tom Herman, Coach Fuente, Charlie Strong, Chad Morris, Matt Rule, Coach Frost. They all got their start in the AAC, and all of them went to a New Year's Day Bowl, the New Year's Day Six, and knocked off a heavyweight in their bowl game. And then they get their bump to a Power 5 league, and Coach Frost had his deal restructured. Of course, Matt Rule crushed it at Temple, and then went to Baylor, did great, and then obviously went off to Carolina. So what's your take on that?
Well, Schmidt, the Power 5 it's like the NFL. The rosters, even though you have 85 on scholarship and you have a bigger roster, and in all honesty, you're like the guys who can actually play that can help you win football games. It's like an NFL roster, and also too, most of the coaches in Power 5, it's changed a little bit, but when I know Matt Rule well. Matt Rule and I came up together in the Southern Conference. I remember sitting with him at some conventions, and him and I, being depressed, seeing some other guys get these big jobs while we're sitting there, trying to get in front of some coaches to talk to and hopefully climb that ladder. But I think the guys who successful, one of it is just timing. You got to have a little bit of luck in the situation. And in that conference, a lot of it has to do with your quarterback play.
Gotcha.
Now, at Temple, it was a little bit different formula. Matt's a Penn State guy, worked his way up the ladder when you're looking at these guys individually. I mean, Matt has always built his teams from the inside out. O-line, D-line, and he always had elder statesmen on his staff. When he was at Temple, he had George DeLeon. George DeLeon was NFL coach, coached at Syracuse with Coach Pasqualoni when they had it humming. And Ole Miss, George had a resume, that was out of this world. So he surrounded himself with guys like that. So I think when you make that jump, that's really, really critical. But once again, too, when you jump to that Power 5, man, it's tough, man. Like I said, it's like the NFL. Even though you got 85 on scholarship, you got about 40, 50 guys that can actually help you win football games. But Schmidt, a lot of it has to do with luck, timing, and that guy who has the ball in his hand every snap. And when you look at those guys, where they came from, they had unbelievable quarterbacks.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, and don't let him fool you, a legendary noon ball player, Hail Varsity Radio Roadshow here at the Single Barrel ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. So what's your thought on the lack of patience? There's 100 jobs open, Coach Kaz. SC, LSU, Washington now, TCU, Virginia Tech with Fuente is open, and is it just a lack of patience from administration and fan bases now converging because of the dollar amounts? Or is it it just doesn't look like there's a deep pool for guys, or maybe somebody has the next mid-major guy that can succeed? What's your reaction to all these openings?
Well,
it's a banner year this year.
I think there's a couple things that why I think this happens. Now, I'm going to steal something. I was listening to Hurrdat this morning. I was driving from a meeting, had about an hour, or actually this afternoon, Ben Hurrdat, and he was talking a little bit about that. And I think, there's a lot of fan bases with unrealistic expectations, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. Absolutely not. But, when you get a lot of pressure and a lot of the money people and those things, but it doesn't matter a lot of times who you get there. Sometimes right now there's some ceilings put on some people because of the parity. And what I mean, when the ceilings are just about on everybody that's not named Ohio State and Alabama. And I think what happens is, you got Minnesotas that are be patient to where you can get to Wisconsin. You can't be Ohio State until you're Wisconsin. Sure. You can't be, you can't be Oklahoma until Texas Tech becomes Baylor. Those type of things. Everybody wants to get to that climb right away, and everybody thinks that, hey, it's easy. There's nothing easy about it. Ohio State is trying to get to Bama. Bama's Bama. People in the Big Ten are trying to get to Ohio State, but you got to look at that path there first. Before Purdue can be Wisconsin, they got to be Minnesota and they got to be Iowa before they can get to Wisconsin. Then when you're Wisconsin, then you go to that next level. So you can't put a price tag on stability. And I just think stability is extremely important. And when you create instability, you create it hurts you in all aspects of your program, all aspects, especially the guys that are currently on campus.
Rick Kaczenski's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Kaz, we'll get you out of here on this. 3 keys. Let's talk about Madtown, Nebraska, Wisconsin. And Wisconsin's playing great ball. Nebraska's, well, trying to figure things out here. How does Nebraska keep this thing close?
You got to punt. Just can't turn the ball over. Nothing wrong with punting. Nebraska, get a first down every possession. That's it. Punt. Wisconsin's gotten better offensively. I like that back. He's a young kid.
He's awesome.
He's starting to play a little bit better. I think you got to keep them out of what Wisconsin has been able to do is loosen defenses up because they've been getting in 2nd and 5, 2nd and 4s, things like that. So you got to keep them in. You got to keep them in 2nd and 7. It just makes your calls easier as a defensive coordinator. It's those 2nd and either or where now you're getting in a chess match, and they'll max it up. They'll go play action. I think Ferguson is critical. You got to limit Ferguson's touches. And I like this back a lot, but I don't think he's a Taylor that's going to get the ball at the 10 and take it 90 yards. And I think just offensively, like I said, you can't turn the ball over. You got to punt. Wisconsin, they're going to eat the clock up. You got to get off on 3rd down, but make them drive the field. Make them drive the field. Get them behind the sticks a little bit, because what Mert seems to struggle with is those intermediate throws. If you look at them 3rd to 5 to 7, they're not a really good team on those downs. So I think if you can keep them in 3rd down, 3rd, 6, and 7, you got a really good chance, because they're pretty predictable on those downs and what they're going to do, and they know that. And it just comes down to, hey, their dude beating your dude, and let's line up. But obviously it's no different anytime you go on the road. You got to play good defense. Can't turn the ball over. There's absolutely nothing wrong with punting and putting the pressure on Wisconsin. Let them make the mistake, driving the field. So that's what I see.
Rick Kaczenski's with us. Kaz, will get caught up next week and gear up for Black Friday, Nebraska and Iowa. Work on your free throws, okay?
You got it, bro. Appreciate it.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
We are getting close to tip-off here at PBA as we're on the road here. Real Red Tip-Off, Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. We're powered on the road by Ferris Financial Group and, of course, Arrow Brokerage and your friends at Nebraska Orthopedic and Sports Medicine, the same folks that bring you the phone lines for Real Red Reaction. That is going to be happening Saturday from my patio with Nebraska, Wisconsin. Elijah's like, nice. Now, last time we hosted there, it was a heartbreak against Sparty. We'll see if we can sacrifice a live chicken or something to break the hex. Needing to break the hex is Nebraska basketball. Your starters tonight against Creighton, Alonzo Verge, Trey and Bryce McGowan's Lat is back, and then you got Walker. So those are your 5. So Coach Smith was incredible. Great takes from him and breakdown of Nebraska and Creighton. Jeff Smith thought and says this, 78-69 Nebraska. That is his prediction. Elijah, you and I will give our thoughts here before we say goodbye, but note to self, Single Barrel the spot for pregame dinner and drinks, and then you get on down to PBA for Nebraska basketball. We'll be back here Wednesday ahead of Turkey Day. We will celebrate with you being away from in-laws, and I love my in-laws, but you'll get out the night before Thanksgiving, and we want to see you down here at the Single Barrel for some food and drink specials ahead of Turkey Day, in case cousin Eddie's wife is in your family when it comes to cooking the turkey the next day. That could be dangerous. Black Friday, of course, we're on the road, the bar, and then we're here for some basketball throughout the season. So Elijah, you're looking kind of funny at me. Have you determined where you're going tonight? Is the line still 3.5 with Nebraska?
You missed a great selling point of the single barrel while discussing there, which is that it's a great place to buy your subordinate at work a steak and a beer whenever you lose a steak and a beer bet money on Monday football. One of the best places.
Are you coming down?
Probably
That's the
not.
question. Are you coming? Okay. No, you are.
Well, I got work
right.
to do. You got me chained up here in the studio to be posting up all the social media stuff.
We're gonna chase that steak and a beer bet here to get back to even. What you can do, back to social media, ESPN Lincoln's where you find us on Twitter at ESPN Lincoln for Facebook, and we're streaming both. And this is the first time we're on Twitter streaming, but not the last, so that's really awesome. Numbers to get in, 466-3776, 466-3776, 800-825-5865. College football playoff reveals coming up at 6 as well. And do you look at any movement? You're going to have Georgia stay number 1 with a bullet because, look, they didn't play well and they still won 42-17. And Tennessee's good. Josh Heupel, who ate the old Josh Heupel, is good. I mean, Tennessee will be fine with him as coach. Bama is probably still in the top 4. I think you keep Ohio State. They're in the 4. Cincinnati's probably at 2 until they need to move out. I don't know.
Well,
and then
the question is Oregon. What do you do with Oregon?
You've got nothing, man. You have got nothing in the Pac-12 right now. Think of your openings. You're going to have SC is open. UCLA may be open. Oregon State's guy is the old Washington offensive coordinator or defensive coordinator, one of the two. He's done pretty well. Okay, I'll give him credit. Washington State's a nightmare without the Pirate. Washington just whacked their coach like he's Joe Pesci in Goodfellas. Arizona's still garbage. Arizona State and Herm, they're going to double secret probation time shortly with COVID visits. I mean, it's a joke. If you're Cristobal in Oregon, you've got the win in the back pocket at Ohio State. Ohio State, that looks so good. And what some committee member is going to do is penalize you for beating Ohio State in week 2. That's what's going to happen. Well, Ohio State wasn't Ohio, which is true, but you shouldn't sneeze at it. Same with Michigan State and Michigan. I think Michigan's awesome. I think they're a really good football team. But they're ranked in front of Michigan State, who beat them head-to-head.
I mean, at this point in the season, we know who 3 of the teams are going to be in all likelihood. It's going to be Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State. Who's the 4th team going to be?
Do you want to see Cincinnati or do you want to see Oregon?
Give me Cincinnati all day. Cincinnati hasn't done anything wrong. They've taken every single
They've got
team
to play
on their
at
schedule,
SMU this week, though. They've got to play at SMU this week, and that's another hurdle. Brett emails in, I'll wager whatever you want. Brett, who you taking? What are the points you need? We're not going to repeat Monday night's fiasco where I gave Elijah 5.5 and San Fran drilled the Rams. That was garbage. That was really bad. But no, I think I'll give my prediction here in about 10 minutes with Nebraska and Creighton. It's just weird. Usually this is first part of December, and it's it's Wisconsin week.
Well, Schmidt,
some news and notes.
Before we get to news and notes, you tell me, what is the crowd mood in downtown Lincoln right now as you look out the windows of the Single Bears, you see people walking in? Does it look like it's going to be a raucous crowd tonight, or is it a crowd that's waiting for another Creighton waxing?
No, I don't think it's quite execution mode, all right? But I saw Mitch Sherman tweet out a picture 10 minutes ago, and Mitch will be with us on Thursday. There wasn't streams of people. Now, it's going to be full, right? I don't doubt that. But I think folks right now are wondering what they're going to get.
It's not student
I think there's
section,
some uncertainty.
Not student section lined up 3 blocks down the road waiting to get in.
No. And with this game, it usually is.
Mm-hmm. It is.
But right now, you're so turned off by what you saw in Game 1, and quite honestly, in a lot of Game 2, you're not sure about this, and you're not sure about this early. And it's not a coaching question mark, because Fred's money. This kid's got to do what he asks, and that's the big thought. I loved what Coach Smith was saying earlier too about, Verge, because why do you bring a guy here like Verge from Arizona State if he's a 2 or an off-ball guard, but you ask him to play point guard? Why do you do it? Well, you sell him saying, "Hey, bro, we know you can score as a 2 or as a 3, but you're not super tall for a 3, but you get what I'm saying. Learn how to play point for us. Make yourself more valuable, and my NBA connections will get you where you want to go."
I mean, look at what Delano Banton's already doing this year in the NBA. A guy who...
great advertisement.
Yes, a great advertisement, because even at Nebraska, he never set the world on fire. Then he goes over to the Raptors, and he's getting very consistent minutes, probably the most successful second-round pick, and he's being more effective than a lot of first-round guys in the NBA this year.
We will wind down a road show Tuesday here at the Single Barrel Real Red tip-off here ahead of Nebraska-Creighton. Some predictions coming up, and we'll get you ready. Our home for basketball season with Real Red tip-off, the Single Barrel inside the Graduate. Elijah Herbal, Chris Schmidt. We'll wind down to Tuesday next.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So tweet out from our friend Jacob Padilla with HailVarsity.com and magazine. Follow Jacob for updates and coverage with Husker basketball tonight. Jacob's incredible with his knowledge and love for hoops. So you have Nemhard is going to be starting at point, but you have no Mitchell in the starting lineup for Creighton tonight. Really cool for Cam Taylor-Britt and JoJo Doman. Both guys are getting invites to the Senior Bowl. We'll get caught up with Uncle Jerry DiNardo, who does that coverage, does that game as time gets closer. So predictions are great. And as we look at here, Creighton's making their way onto the floor. You've got still quite a few open seats, empty seats before the 6:01 tip-off on FS1 with a couple of incredible broadcasters and Nick Baugh and Kevin Kugler. They're on the FS1 call tonight. Elijah, without further ado, 3.5's the line. It's easy to go with your heart, but sometimes you got to go with your head. Where are you at for this Nebraska-Creighton ball game? Does Nebraska move to 3-1, or does the red balloon get popped?
First things first, what a shame this game is at 6 o'clock on a Tuesday. 6 o'clock on a Saturday is one thing.
8 o'clock, brother. 8 o'clock on a Saturday, so you can get lubed up and get ready to rock.
Yes, 6 o'clock on a Tuesday is just such a shame. It's going to be probably a late arriving crowd to Pinnacle Bank Arena. However, I see this thing going pretty well for the Huskers early. I think they're going to understand the importance of it. I think they're going to play like more like we saw in that second half against Sam Houston State, or more like Colorado. But I think they kind of wane down the stretch, especially the final 10 minutes of that game. I think they're still, we haven't seen enough of that progression. They're probably going to regress back to some of what those things we saw early against Sam Houston State and against Western Illinois, where they're playing hero ball with the game on the line when the pressure hits. So I see Nebraska hanging around, maybe even taking a lead into the halftime break, but I see Creighton pulling away late. And I have Creighton with a win, which then therefore means they cover, because I think Nebraska is, a 2.5 or a 3-point favorite in this one. So I have Creighton with an outright win, probably somewhere in the 8-point range. 78-70 is where I'll put it. Creighton with a win.
Should we do it for real? Should we make this the steak and the beer?
Well, are you going to go opposite of me? Are you going to say Nebraska covers?
I can't. I'm going to chicken out. We're going to do a steak and a beer on Friday. I'm going to say this. I think you're right. I think Creighton wins. I think Creighton's too disciplined. even though they're young and early and new, they're still 2-0. All right, there's no Western Illinois or first half of Sam Houston. And I think Creighton gets this done just because of Nebraska's better, but they're still not great at keeping it simple. There's your difference, 78-70, Creighton the win.
Same score. 78-70, we had the same one.
I was listening to you. Sorry, I'll go 75-70.
Okay.
Free throws down the stretch, right?
What if it is 78-70? We're both right here.
If it's 78-70, I'm picking you up at midnight. We're going to the boats.
Let's do it. Let's do it. Who cares about the KO4 morning show?
Man. No, I do.
I was kidding.
Quite honestly. Hey, big thanks to the Single Barrel for having us out here inside the Graduate. Real Red Tip-Off concludes. Elijah Herbal, Chris Schmidt. Thanks to Jeff Smith, Rick Kaczenski, and, of course, Rick Pizzo back tomorrow at 4 on Hail Varsity.